Hiya, Barbie.
Hi, Ken.
You wanna go do a podcast?
Sure.
Jump in.
Ladies and gentlemen, Barbies and Kens, Kellys of all ages, and everyone else, welcome to Binging Barbie, a Barbie movie podcast. I'm your co-host, John, and with me I have my wonderful co-host. He has control issues, and that's a problem. Jay!
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, that guy. Well, so for those of you just joining us, we are a podcast about Barbie movies. Every week, we watch one of the straight-to-DVD animated Barbie movies, and we rate its story, characters, animation, voice acting, and music to see how it stacks up. This week, we'll be talking about the 10th Barbie animated film, and the final in the original Fairytopia trilogy, Magic of the Rainbow. On to you,
Ooh.
Jay!
Yeah, as you said, this is the final Fairytopia movie, at least for now. It was released on March 11, 2007, on Nickelodeon once again, though the DVD came out 2 days later on March 13th. And once again, directed by William Lau. He has directed or co-directed all of these Fairytopia movies, and then he also worked on Princess and the Pauper. And once again, written by Elise Allen, who has worked on all of these Fairytopia movies. And the music is by Eric Colvin, who, again, we have the whole team back for this movie. And yeah, it follows Elina, who, after saving the world a second time, gets summoned to Magical Fairy School to learn this special dance that they do in order to bring about spring. And the plot sort of ensues from there. The evil Laverna comes back and tries to interrupt this dance, and then there's a bunch of sort of school drama with all of these different characters who are there to learn this dance. And Alina, of course, saves the day a third time, saves Fairytopia.
That's the film. That's the film.
It's not a super complicated plot this time around. It's very, very Harry Potter.
Sure.
Just in terms of the magical school and these different classes that are specifying like parts of magic. And this did come out the same year as Order of the Phoenix, the fifth Harry Potter movie. So it's kind of in the height of Harry Potter's popularity. And I think you could tell they're taking inspiration.
See, I wouldn't say it's quite the same as Harry Potter in terms of the magical school. You know, I think I could vaguely see it. It's more like what we did in high school for Independence Day, when we had to do those dances, you know, the cultural dances.
Yeah.
It's like that, based on a specific thing versus going to a school. It's not the Barbie Diaries where like there's an actual plan. What do schools have? DCP? Yeah, they don't have a DCP, degree to completion plan. They're just here to learn there's one dance and that's it.
Yeah, it is, though. I think the magic element, and I know it's not just a Harry Potter thing. I know there's like, I think the Winx Club also has a school, but it's very different from the other two Fairytopia movies in that it's not a straightforward adventure where the characters are moving through a world.
Sure.
It's now very locked down on this one specific location where there is this sort of school dynamic going on. And this save the world plotline.
Again, from Laverna.
Yes. Laverna back.
Yep.
Frog for part of it, not Frog for some of it.
Mm-hmm.
Body swapping a bit. Yeah, her plan this time around is interesting.
Is it interesting, though? It's pretty much the same as the first, except much more deadly.
Yeah. Well, and the biggest problem that this movie has is that it doesn't do a good job defining what's at stake and even how the magic works.
Part of it can also be a problem with the last two films not setting this up as well.
Yeah, now, I don't think it's a problem with either of those movies specifically because the magic was never a central part of those movies. It was just kind of it shows up when it needs to. Whereas in this movie, the entire plot of the movie is these characters learning how to do this magic, but they never explain what this magic is, how it even works. Sometimes you need words for it, sometimes you don't. It's very unclear.
This is where I made the connection to Harry Potter, in that I took a look at Harry Potter and I think that like films before they actually go to the place, like the Ministry of Magic, they mention the Ministry of Magic films or books before they actually go there. And so when we finally get there, it's like, that's what this thing is. Here, out of the blue, we have this tradition, very important, and we're expected to know what it is, kind of already.
Yeah. And I mean, the movie kind of sets it up, but it's very vague in how it sets it up.
Right. So we don't know what the stakes are. Why do they do this? How long have they been doing this? What other jobs do the Guardians have besides dancing every year?
Yeah, well, they seem to be the leaders of the different realms, but again, there isn't much definition of what are these realms, how do they lead,
Mm.
what's going on in this world. And in Mermaidia, we didn't get any of this explanation for Mermaidia, but it worked a little bit better because the plot isn't so directly tied to the world.
No. It was just on this one mission. This one, however, it's heavily involving the world of magic and the fairies' customs.
Yeah, I think they could have spent a bit more time explaining the magic, how it works, what it does, what abilities different fairies have.
And why did different fairies look so different?
Yeah, it's. I think overall the plot itself is structured well, but you're missing the inroad for an audience to be
Right.
like, okay, now I understand. You know what happens if spring doesn't come? Well, winter, but what does that mean for Fairytopia?
Yeah.
How does opening this ball bring about spring?
Yeah, I got to like halfway through the film where I realized that this is just there's nothing interesting happening. Like there is, but there isn't. Like I don't know why I care. I don't know, like this is kind of boring.
Yeah, I don't know that I ever got quite to that point, but it definitely does a bad job
Hmm.
setting up the stakes. Now, I think once you have a clearer idea of, in the third act, Laverna's kind of
Yeah, but
taken
here's the
over.
question: like, why are these the stakes? Like, why the heck does Laverna want to destroy Fairytopia? I know it's to get at her stupid sister, but like, why? What do you gain
Yeah,
out of it? I didn't even know what she gained from the first film. I understood her plot in the second film looked to be not banished, but I don't know what's going on here.
yeah. Honestly, I think it's just general revenge here.
But it's
But
not good
yeah,
revenge. Like her plan doesn't make sense. It just feels like she's pulling it out of her bum.
and I think that is somewhat she's kind of rolling with the punches. But again, because we don't have a good understanding of the magic system, it's difficult to understand where Laverna is coming from.
She also acts like this is she's had this plan all along.
Yeah. And one of the things I wonder about this movie, because it feels much more like a sequel to the first Fairytopia movie than Mermaidia.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wonder, because these movies are coming out one after another, pretty much every single year there's a new Fairytopia movie. So I wonder if originally there was a plan for two Fairytopia movies, one where Laverna tries to take over with this mist that is taking out the winged fairies, and then Elina has to save the day, and then she gets banished, and then she, because of that, starts to seek revenge, so she tries to interrupt this dance and destroy Fairytopia. And then at some point in the process, someone came in and said, "Hey, mermaids, what can we do with these?" And so they're like, "Oh, we can slot them in here."
See, the mermaids makes more sense in that, because they were teased in the first film. Why not explore it more in the second film?
I don't disagree with that. I just wonder if originally plot elements from this movie were supposed to be in Mermaidia, or maybe more accurately, plot elements from Mermaidia were supposed to be in this movie.
I don't know. I feel like this one was less planned than Mermaidia was.
Okay. I thought that Mermaidia, since the stakes were so much lower, and you could cut Mermaidia out and lose nothing
Yeah,
plot-wise
right.
between these two movies, except for you wouldn't have the introduction of Fungus Maximus. But he's not a character you need much introduction for.
Yeah, he's also not really utilized that much in this film.
Yeah. So because of that, it almost felt to me like Mermaidia was this awkward middle chapter that just kind of got slotted in between these two. And maybe that's not the case. I mean, it seems odd to me that they would have these three movies planned out and then not actually like do much planning of them, since they were coming out so shortly after each other. But maybe that is how it worked. Maybe the turnaround on the script was faster than I was thinking. It just feels like there could have been more interesting things going on than just let's repeat the plot of the first movie. Well, not the plot necessarily, but it's the same threat, similar level of ambiguity.
Yeah.
Where Mermaidia kind of felt like a fun little digression from this plot. Now, I will say, as much as I'm sort of harping on the plot here, I do enjoy big parts of it, especially the sort of school aspects of it. I actually think it would have been a better movie if it had been more of the school drama and less of the saving the world stuff.
I don't know. Because we did just have a school drama with the Barbie Diaries.
Yeah, here I think, though, it works better because the characters are more interesting to begin with.
Mm,
And you have a different setting, which is what a lot of these sort of magic school properties do, is they take familiar ideas from coming of age movies and transpose them into this new setting. I don't know. Personally, I didn't find the saving the world plot all that interesting because we've seen it happen twice.
right.
Whereas the school drama stuff, and maybe I'm
Yeah,
just,
I mean, the school drama stuff also just feels so short-sighted by the main plot.
yeah,
To the point where the character Sunburst isn't allowed to have a proper character arc because she's missing half the film.
yeah. That's the biggest issue with her character here, is that she disappears and Laverna takes her place, So you don't have the relationship between her and Elina develop over the movie the way you did between Elina and Nori in the last movie.
Here's another question: like, how did they save the day?
That also gets back to this ambiguous magic system.
Yeah, like also like Sunburst when they were like trying to save the flower has no knowledge of all the steps because she was missing.
Yeah,
So how did she save? How did she help save the day?
yeah. The fact that she's missing for so much of the plot raises more questions than.
Mhm.
And it's interesting to have Laverna take her place as part of
Yeah,
Laverna's plotline, but it really undercuts Sunburst and Alina. Because any development Alina has towards becoming Sunburst friends, well, now that isn't Sunburst, it's Laverna, so that doesn't matter. And then Sunburst just is asleep at the bottom of a pond.
I think that if Laverna, I think she probably should have taken over Shimmer,
Yeah,
the one who was
Shimmer
actually
didn't.
nice to Alina.
Oh, Shimmer isn't the one who's nice to Alina, that's Glee.
Yes, who's Shimmer?
Shimmer is the one who flies with her hair.
Oh, that one. Okay,
Yeah,
that one.
because then you have, and that is the issue with the whole Laverna taking over Sunburst. Well, one of the issues is that you constantly have. Well, first off, the entire vibe changes, where she's
Mm-hmm.
too nice to Alina.
But
So having
like
that,
Lavina never questions it by the end.
yeah. And then the other thing is you have absolutely no ambiguity as to what's going on. Because every scene with Sunburst, well, with Laverna as Sunburst, ends with a shot of Laverna as Sunburst doing like an evil eyebrow or laughing. So you never forget who she is. I don't know. It feels. It's the kind of thing that a lot of kids' movies do for a reason, which is they make it as obvious as possible when characters are lying.
Right.
But unfortunately, here I think it undercuts the stakes. Because every time Laverna does something as Sunburst, she then has to turn to the camera and raise her eyebrows evilly.
And it's just very obvious.
Now, all of that said, I think the movie comes together for the third act.
Mm.
For me.
Mm.
It's one of those classic everyone has to work together type of things where they call back to elements from throughout the rest of the movie and sort of weave them into this climax, and little details from earlier become important. So things like the sparkle fairies not being able to have their power when they touch water, that becomes a significant detail for Alina finding Sunburst. And I think there's just a scope to the climax of the movie that works, as much as the stuff leading up to it doesn't.
I think so too, but I think the lead up is very important. For
Yes.
instance, the group element, I think, could have been really interesting, if done really well. But I never felt like we got to a point where the group was well developed. Because, like, you have so many wonderful character designs with very unique characters, but, like, they don't. There's not a whole lot developed in each of them. And it's
Yeah.
a real shame, because by the end, it's like, yeah, they're together. Woohoo. Friendship is magic.
I mean, honestly, and this is what I was saying about how I'm more interested in the school drama than the save the world plot line.
Yeah, that would have
If you
helped.
if you have, rather than showing up at the end of the first act, have Laverna show up at the end of the second act. And have the first two acts just be, okay, these characters are here to learn from the Guardians, and they're struggling with it, and Laverna has her plot going on in the background, and then things seem to be going well, and then suddenly Laverna shows up, and all of the Guardians are put to sleep, and Sunburst has gone missing, and
Here's
then
an
have
interesting
that.
question.
Yeah,
How did Laverna know about the thing?
the dance.
Like the whole summoning the apprentices.
So that was because Fungus was spying on Azura.
How? Because when Fungus is revealed to be listening, he's like miles away from the conversation.
Yes. I don't know what the mechanics are exactly. But yeah, that's how that whole thing. So presumably Laverna sent Fungus out knowing like, hey, it's about time for that yearly dance thing they do. Let's follow one of the Guardians and find out how we can sabotage it. Yeah, it's the plot could be cleaner and simpler.
Yeah.
And I think the thing to cut first is Bibble's subplot.
Oh my goodness. There was too much Bibble in this. Like,
No.
just the opening sequence was too much. Nothing was happening. It was just Bibble.
Yeah.
I just...
I do like that they give him his own subplot, because it means he doesn't have much involvement in the main plot.
No.
But the subplot they give him is...
He loses a tooth and he's
Yeah.
waiting for the fairy.
Yeah. It's... And obviously this is a kid's movie made for young kids who are at the age where they're losing their teeth.
Sure.
But it's such an odd... And there isn't like a lesson to it.
Yeah, he's just there.
A lot of the development of it happens off screen.
He's just there.
Yeah.
Did this film come out in 3D? 'Cause I think Bibble would be perfect
It did
for
not.
3D.
But yeah,
Okay.
he gets close to the camera.
You know what was worse than Bibble?
Dizzle?
Yes, girl Bibble. She shows up, like my notes go on a rant. You know, like, no! Exclamation, exclamation. Girl Bibble! Exclamation. The end is near! Period.
Yeah. It's... Eventually, at a certain point, I just got numb to Bibble and Dizzle. And I think that helped me enjoy the movie more. That any scene with them just kind of slid out of my brain. Like, you can cut them out of this movie. And you have more time for this, for the school stuff, to develop these relationships between these characters better.
Right.
And have a more satisfying conclusion because of it.
Mm-hmm. But they gotta sell toys.
Yeah. And that's
I don't know
what it comes
who
down
would
to.
want to buy Dizzle. My gosh.
Yeah. I don't find either of them particularly cute.
No. What a nightmare. What a nightmare.
But yeah. Overall, I gave the plot a 3.5 out of 5. Because I think the third act comes together well, even though everything leading up to it doesn't. I gotta give it points for that.
I gave it a 3 because I didn't feel like it was developed enough, both in terms of just the story, what happens in it, and just how it goes, how the characters interact with it.
Now, speaking of those characters, I think the characters this time around are what make the movie interesting. And I think we need more time with them in the movie.
We need so much more time with them. It's such a shame.
Yeah. Now first up is Elina.
Meh.
She's once again the protagonist.
Yeah.
Her arc from the last movie is completed, so she doesn't really have much of an arc this time around, if any. She just kind of shows up and does her thing.
She's also not very smart. Because Laverna just
Yeah,
shows up as a toad, looking obviously like Laverna. It's like, huh, this toad with a cloak.
yeah.
That's not Laverna. Let me turn your back. Holy crap, it's Laverna. I've been duped.
Yeah, this is a movie that would have been resolved a lot quicker if Barbie had brought the toad back to the Guardians and said, "Hey, can you help this toad reverse the spell?"
Right.
Guardians would have been like, "No, that's Laverna."
Right. Oh, also, hold on. How does that magic crystal work? The one that
The,
spies in Laverna.
I think the plot needs it to work.
Like, here's the thing. If it's supposed to hone in on Laverna, why did it go to...
So I paid attention to this because I was curious as well. The person specifically asked to see the bogs of the hinterlands, not Laverna. So that's how it shows.
But can Laverna do magic?
Yeah,
She's a
that's
frog.
apparently she can.
Eh.
It's odd. Her powers are never clearly defined, and there's things like she can transform to look like other people and transform other people to look like other people, but then like she can't just walk up and bonk the enchantress on the head
I mean,
and disrupt the whole thing that way.
honestly, it would turn out exactly the same either way.
Yeah.
The Enchantress is so useless.
I I think the biggest problem though with Elina is that she has sudden magical abilities in this movie, and they are
Oh yeah.
stronger magical abilities than anyone else,
Oh
and they
yeah.
weren't brought up at any point before, and there's not any line acknowledging that. And
Nope.
so it just comes out of absolutely nowhere. Because that would be the perfect moment to have. Well, Alina now has to learn how to do magic. So that could be how they explain how magic works. I think even more egregious than that she suddenly has magic we didn't know about is that there's a line, and it's the line that you used to introduce me about how she needs to learn control.
Oh my gosh.
But she never does. We never see that. And
We
there isn't
do.
even a
Like,
moment
she
of,
fails once and then does it
yeah,
the second time. And it's like,
yeah,
oh, great. She learned control.
yeah, there's that could have easily been an arc for her in this movie.
Oh, also, there's her consistent theme. Early in the film, she leaves behind Daisy.
Dandelion.
Dandelion. She, like,
Yes.
leaves her. She just leaves behind her friends again.
Yeah. This time Dandelion actually calls it out. She's like, "Hey, you left me behind the last two times."
Well, I ain't changing this time.
Yep. Now she does bring Bibble along to both of our dismay.
She always forces Bibble
And
along. Bibble never wanted to.
this time he's less reluctant, which kind of puts a damper on my theory that Bibble is Alina's.
Well, let's look at it this way. At that point, there was nothing wrong going on. They were just going to class.
Yeah.
So Bibble's like, hey, there's no danger. I'll go too.
And I do think he is in this movie to express things that Alina can't express. But
Like
mainly
that
that
How to
is,
Lose Your Tooth and
yeah,
Tooth Fairy.
yeah. It's mainly just silliness in this movie. And Bibble
Somebody
and,
needed a romance.
yeah, Bibble and Dizzle are annoying.
Oh my gosh.
Luckily, they are somewhat sequestered off in their own plot line. So the movie isn't constantly cutting back to them for comedic relief. It does cut back to them quite a bit,
Mm-hmm.
but it felt like less than in Mermaidia. But unfortunately, every time they show up, it's like extra concentrated. It's again, you could cut their plot line out of the movie, and you would have extra time to do the kind of story setup that this movie desperately needs.
Oh, yeah, here's a question. So, they all have to go to the same classes.
Yes.
So why in the luminescence class there are only two of them?
So they go to the same classes, but not all at the same time.
Why not?
That honestly, it might just be saving money on
I'm
animation.
I'm pretty sure that's the case, but like there should be no reason not to because they're all in
Yeah,
each other's classes anyway, and at any other time. But
and there's
luminescence,
7 of them. It's
and
not
we're all
like
learning the exact same thing.
yeah.
And you're on a
And
timetable,
I
so
think part of that is the magic school thing of, oh, are we in the same class? Oh, look, we have this class together. But again, there isn't much payoff for that. It's just, this is what magic schools do, so. But speaking of the magic school, let's talk about these other apprentices.
oh yeah,
So there are a total of 7 apprentices here.
mm-hmm.
The guardians aren't much of characters. There's a few that show up here and there, but most of the time is spent with these apprentice characters. And each one comes from a different region, and most of them are different types of fairies. But none of this is ever really explained. Like, so for example, when Lumina shows up, she says, "Hi, I'm Lumina. I'm a moon fairy. Our gift is being able to see the future." She's the only character in the movie that does that.
And it never really comes up, really.
No.
I mean, she kind of predicts the future of the plot, but not
Yeah.
really.
It's an issue where, again, because this world is so poorly defined and this magic is so poorly defined,
Imagine if by the final climax, the solution was that each character had their unique abilities that needed to be used.
Yeah.
Versus, let's just throw our light beams at this thing.
Yeah. And the thing is, each of these characters has such a unique personality that you could easily see them doing that, where it's like, let's give each of these characters a specific strength and weakness. Let's make sure that the audience knows these strengths and weaknesses, and then let's pay that off in the climax. Whereas here it's like, Fabian, we don't even know what type of fairy he is. Like, we know there's flower fairies and mountain fairies and sparkle fairies and moon fairies and pixies. Which one is Fabian? Who knows? We know everyone else. We don't know what special powers the flower fairy has. That's who Elina and Glee is also a flower fairy. The mountain fairies, which is what Linden is, they can talk to animals.
Didn't we have a triad in the first film?
Yeah, we had dryads in the first film as well. And we've had mermaids, we have had mer fairies. And it's like, you never get a sense of the world outside of what the movie's scope is. And even within the movie scope, you don't understand, like, what makes Elina as a flower fairy different from Linden, a mountain fairy? Not much, apparently. It's a real missed opportunity.
It is.
Because the thing that the movie does so well is giving each of these characters a distinct and easily distilled personality.
Right. Better than the last film.
Yes. Much better than 12 Dancing Princesses.
For reasons. There are not
Yes.
that many characters.
Yes. Here, though, they introduce each character in a very specific way to define their personality. And then each character has a very distinct character design, which, with the exception of Elina, stays consistent throughout the movie with the same color palette.
Yes.
So
Which I
in a
love.
scene, you can immediately tell who's who. Whereas with 12 Dancing Princesses, they're 12 nearly identical princesses.
Yeah, but they had to introduce all the characters in a scene where Barbie can't decide what house to live in, when it's obvious
Yes.
she deserves the pink one.
Yeah. It's a fun little welcome to school scene, I think.
The entire time, like, girl, you're pink. Look at their colors. They're the same as their house.
To be fair, she first walks into Lumina. I think it's Lumina's house, and Shimmer is getting her future read.
Mm-hmm.
Which Lumina is the resident sort of like weird character, very quirky. She has a very unique personality among even these other Barbie movies, because her future predicting abilities will just kind of like take over for a moment, and she'll like say something creepy and then immediately switch back to her normal persona, which is a very pleasant person.
Right.
Her characterization here kind of reminded me of, bringing back Harry Potter, Luna Lovegood. Sort of
Lumina.
this Luna. Yes, Luna and Lumina. Both having that connection with the moon as well.
Both introduced in the same year.
Yep.
Film-wise.
At least on film. Yeah. She's a little less odd, but she has a similar vibe.
Yeah, she does.
And then, yeah, next up we are introduced to Shimmer, who...
Mm-hmm.
She's a bit of a bully to start with.
I don't love her design.
Yeah, she uses her hair to fly.
And she has a big
which
head.
Is, at least it's unique, but yeah. I wouldn't say she's all that memorable. Especially since we have Sunburst, who is also somewhat of a bully to start out with, but she gets more focus. She's the sort of secondary antagonist who then Laverna takes over her body and she becomes the primary antagonist.
She's like the one who can do things right on the first try.
Yeah. She's the star student, she's the popular one.
Until she's not.
And then, yeah, the biggest problem with her character is, once again, that she disappears for half the movie, and when she comes back, she's a different character. She goes from hating Elina to being fine with Elina.
It's a shame because, like, I think she has the best design out of the apprentices. I love that color palette. It just works so well.
The color palette and, like, the sunglasses stands out very well.
Yeah. Her and Glee have good designs.
Yes.
They all do, really.
Yeah.
Except for Glee. No, except for Shimmer.
Shimmer, yeah. I forgot to mention, the first person Alita actually meets is Lyndon.
Oh, right.
He's sort of the bland love interest here.
If you could even call it that. Like, he's just not... I forget that he exists. Like, that's how important he is to the plot.
Yeah, he's kind of there to just be nice to Elina. And that's about it.
Yeah, since we can't have the Mermaid King prince, we have this guy.
I do think his costume looks cool.
Sure.
And then, yeah, the next person who Elina meets of this group is the best. My favorite.
Not mine.
Fabin. Mm-hmm. He is hilariously self-obsessed. His introduction is, you hear his voice, and Alina's sort of floating around this thing, and she hears this voice, and it's, "Oh, aren't you the most beautiful person ever?" And then he shows up and he's looking in a mirror. "Aren't you so beautiful? There's no one as beautiful as you." Then he turns around and he has another mirror. except for you. Just sort of this classic narcissist in the most fun way.
Mm-hmm.
He is fabulous and extra and great. Very, very like queer coded in
Sure.
sort of a very like not a particularly flattering portrayal necessarily, but just so much fun every time he's on screen. And
I don't know. I was kind of annoyed
yeah, I think
because like that was his only character, is that he loved
yeah.
himself so much instead of like growth, which he didn't have any.
No, he doesn't. And that maybe is the one thing I would say. They could have spent a little bit more time on like giving his character an arc. But again, I just think he's so much fun when he shows up.
Oh,
Also, his character model is very well designed. Good costume, shows off all the assets. He gets along with the various divas of this group. Like I'd honestly watch a spin-off about him. He's more interesting to watch than Elina. He even gets along with Laverna when she's disguised as Sunburst.
sure.
I don't know. This is part of the reason why I want more
Uh-huh.
time spent on the school stuff, because you get the time to like explore his character and how does he fit in with all of these other people. He seems to be good friends with all of the ladies.
Yeah. Because, like, at the moment, he's just like every other self-absorbed character looking at
Yeah,
himself in the mirror that we see in cartoons.
I I, I don't know. I just find him fun to watch,
I I
and
I, I bet. No, I bet.
I mean he should be obsessed with his appearance. I'm obsessed with his appearance.
Okay. Speaking of being obsessed with their appearance, we have Laverna.
Oh, we don't want to forget The Last Apprentice, the most memorable of them, Glee.
Didn't we already talk about Glee?
No, we didn't. Not specifically.
Okay.
We briefly mentioned her. She's friendly, and that's her only point in the story. And she disappears into the background after she has fulfilled that point.
I know, that is so disappointing.
Yeah. Now, I think I already brought up that this feels like it kind of erases what happened in Mermaidia.
Mm-hmm.
I think this character should have been replaced by Nori from Mermaidia. I don't know the mechanics of that, how she would be able to fly around, but I don't
See,
care. Let's get this character from the last movie who the entire last movie was about Elina and Nori becoming friends.
I thought that Sunburst would have fulfilled the Inori role.
Yes.
Because,
I
like,
think
definitely by the beginning, that's exactly what she was.
yeah. I think in it not changing anything too fundamental to it, I think you could slot Nori in instead of Glee and have a more interesting character dynamic there. Because it would be building off the last movie rather than just kind of like the last movie. Oh yeah, I guess they went to Mermaidia.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, I don't know the mechanics of how that would even work. Yeah, Glee on her own isn't all that memorable though. So yeah, next up we have Laverna.
Laverna, again.
She's the same villain we know.
She's the same villain. She does villainous deeds.
I
I
do think the body swapping is a fun thing here.
It is, but her plan doesn't make any sense. It never made sense to begin with. It's just, I don't
Yeah.
know.
The thing that made her character special in the first movie was that she recognized Alina as a threat from moment one. And neither of these sequels have had the same ability to surprise us with her character.
See, I think something that would have made her as Sunburst better is if that was actually Sunburst's body, but her mind was Laverna.
Yeah.
And so when Elena's looking for the real Sunburst, or if she tries to attack Sunburst, Laverna's like, "Ha, you think it's me? It's actually Sunburst. Aha, you've fallen for my scheme. Oh!" Instead, she just, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know how you fix Laverna's character in this movie. I honestly think the best way to do it is just, again, introduce her at the end of the second act instead of at the end of the first act. Or introduce her into the plot. Obviously, you need to have her in the background doing her scheming. But
Right.
give the protagonist more time to be together as protagonists before Laverna shows up. Because she's not a bad villain. She just isn't particularly interesting.
She's wasted as a frog.
She really didn't need to be in this movie as much as she was.
No.
Now, Fungus Maximus is also once again back. Also, much less memorable in this movie than he was in the last movie. He has some good moments. I like when he's a toad. I think that creates a funny dynamic. But he doesn't do much here.
He's attracted to Sunburst, but that doesn't go anywhere.
Yes. It's more of a throwaway line than a... And then, yeah, the Enchantress and the Guardians don't have anything to do.
Oh my gosh, the Enchantress, who's like this fairy god or something, who's just so useless.
Yeah.
It's like I was hoping at least she'd recognize Sunburst as Laverna, but no.
Yeah.
She's really... She reminds me of a character from My Little Pony, who for the first couple seasons was like, oh, she's so powerful. But then when we finally see her do something, she immediately loses. It's like, wow, she's really pointless and weak.
Yeah.
Great job.
Yeah, there's no sense of, like, why is she the one who's leading Fairytopia? Or how does she even lead Fairytopia?
Why isn't she the one teaching them the entire time?
Yeah, why do we have these guardians who aren't really characters except for Azura, but she doesn't have much to do?
So who's taking over while they're teaching?
Who knows? Again, the scope of the world building in these movies is limited entirely to what the movies need.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what does a day in the life of a fairy in Fairytopia look like? Who knows?
Flying around with Bibble, that's for sure.
Do they have jobs? What even is the world? And it's a missed opportunity. And I think part of the reason why I like the school elements and why I like introducing these other apprentice characters is that it gives you like little glimmers of what day-to-day life in Fairytopia would be like.
Mm-hmm.
But it's never enough to make you care about the world. But yeah, with that in mind, because of these apprentice characters who, even though they aren't given enough time, I think everything, their personalities, their character designs, the way they grow as a group together, I can't give this too low of a character score. So I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 for the characters. Because I think when this movie works, it is because of those characters.
Again, I gave it a 3. I love the character designs. I really wish the characters' personalities were more than just copycat characters from every other staples that you need. It's like, we need this character who is self-absorbed with a mirror? Sure. You need this character who's just mean? Sure. You need a weird one? Sure, here you go. I wish they were explored more. There was more time to spend with them.
Yeah.
And because of that, it's a 3.
I mean, yeah, I don't disagree with any of your points, except that I do think.
Because Lavina is Elina is the only one who really has development. Everyone else
Yeah.
is the same.
Yeah. And I don't know, I just like the characters. This is almost the kind where you could get a really good fan fiction written with these characters.
I'm sure there probably is. We should look
There
that
there
up.
probably is, yeah. Because you have interesting dynamics that are hinted at, but it's only really hints.
I think we just have an idea for future episodes. Fan fiction.
Yeah.
Write that down.
I will put it on the list of potentials.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's talking about potential, we have animation. Like we said before, solid character designs with great uses of different colors for each one. They're all unique in a way. They're all unique in that I can tell who they are.
Yeah, even from a distance,
Yeah.
you can tell them all apart, which is important for a movie where you have a large cast like this.
Right. Did you see that there's one of the Guardians who just looks like Tinkerbell?
Yeah, the Guardians themselves, the character designs for them are they're the same problem with 12 Dancing Princesses, where besides the colors they look exactly the same.
Right.
Whereas the apprentices, you can tell there was a lot of effort put into making each one visually distinct, but also having their character design tell a story in itself. Like you can tell with, for example, Fabin that they're going for a Narcissus reference because of his outfit. And you can tell with Lyndon that he's a bit more closed off because of his outfit, and that he's maybe a bit more not formal, but proper. Maybe that's
Something
a
like
better
that.
word.
Maybe.
That Sunburst is a little bit on the mean side of things with their sunglasses. Whereas with the Guardians, it's just kind of like, well, that one's blue, and that one's purple, and that one's yellow.
That one's red.
Yep.
A little shade of brown.
Yeah, you can tell they were never meant to be important characters in this movie. They don't even all get names here.
Looking at your notes, that is an interesting thing to point out. Is that the first blush of spring?
Yes. That the entire plot of this movie is based on this dance that the fairies perform to bring about spring. The problem with that is that when the movie starts, it is not winter. When they go to the academy, it is not winter. When they are doing the dance to bring about spring, it is not winter. Apparently the seasons in Fairytopia go spring, summer, spring, summer, spring, summer, spring, summer.
Or it's forever spring, and you do this dance every 3 seasons, so it's always spring.
Yeah. It's such a missed opportunity to add stakes, because we don't see what Fairytopia is like in the winter. So you could have, the movie starts and Elina emerges from her house and it's snowy outside and blustery and fairies are having a hard time flying. It's just like everyone kind of has to hibernate or things slow down. So then spring feels like, okay, it's this thing that Fairytopia needs. It's this very important thing that everyone understands is important. So when Elina gets invited to do this dance, it's both a huge honor and a huge responsibility. As opposed to what this movie does, where it's already spring, and they're just doing a dance to make it more spring.
Yeah.
And if the dance fails, then it's suddenly winter.
So that we can have rainbows in the sky.
You can have rainbows in winter.
But, not this type of rainbow. The one that's not like the one with a double bow, the McDonald's rainbow that we have in this one.
I don't know, it's such a missed opportunity, and I put it here in animation, but it is also a plot problem, where, because winter is something we haven't seen much of in these Barbie movies. So that's an opportunity for more unique designs, especially with Fairytopia, given that we're revisiting the meadow, the magic meadow, and that we have the area around the Crystal Palace, which isn't particularly different from anything we've seen in the rest of Fairytopia.
No.
Like, you could have such an interesting thing with, have it start in winter, and now you have a timeline for, we need to get spring about by this date, or things will start to go bad.
Right. I mean, it also just looks like that they're reusing the same locations.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I could see that the school location could just be reused from a previous one. From the first one.
Yeah, that might be. I know that at least the Magic Meadow was in the first movie quite a bit.
It was, and then the Bogs was in the second one.
Yeah. Again, I'm just curious to see what they could have done if it had been winter. And I think the story would hit better. But yeah, beyond that, which is kind of a major complaint, but I can't really lob it at the animation department here. We have, again, great character models, as we were saying, great action and camera movement. The camera is very dynamic here. Good backgrounds, good use of color all around. The colors feel fuller than they have in the other Fairytopia movies, which is really important because this is the magic of the rainbow, so you want the colors to really pop. Yeah, overall, I gave the animation a 4 out of 5. Again, the whole winter stuff, I'm laying more on the plot than on the animation here.
Okay. I just changed my animation score
Oh, okay.
to a 3.1.
Is that a bump up or a bump down?
It's a bump up.
Okay.
It's a bump up because the character designs are really great. The colors are great. But yeah, a lot of the locations just either don't fit the situation or just feel very lacking.
Yeah, that's the thing about this. The other Fairytopia movies had a ton of different, distinct locations. In this one, you really only have the school areas.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an opportunity to go bigger. And I think this movie kind of just, like, doesn't do that. And having this winter thing, I think, would have helped. But yeah, again, I think that's partially a plot problem, which is why I've given the animation a 4 out of 5. So yeah, next up we have voice acting. Mm-hmm. Solid across the board here. I think most importantly, the actors, especially for the apprentices, do a good job at creating unique characters.
Probably not Shimmer, though.
Shimmer a little bit less.
I have a reason for that, though.
Okay. I'm interested to hear it.
All right, now. Okay. So yeah, Shimmer, I believe, is voiced by Andrea Libman, who is like a Pony alumni. But she also voices pretty much all the Pixies in the very beginning of the film. They have the exact same voices for all of them.
Oh,
pretty much.
I didn't realize that.
And I noticed that because it's a very similar voice to one of her pony characters as well. And so, I love Andrea, but I don't know. That was not a lot of range in this one film.
I do think that the apprentices are at least distinct from each other.
They are. We can tell.
And that's important. Again, going back to the last movie, a lot of the 12 Dancing Princesses, the vocal performances weren't particularly distinct, and a lot of that has to do with the character models as well. But here, the standouts for me were Alistair Abel, who plays Fabin.
Of course.
just he chooses the right voice for the character. He sells you on his narcissism.
We're not even talking about Kelly. Just skips Kelly, goes straight to Fabian.
Oh, no. Since I was talking about the apprentices, I thought I would start with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and part of it is, I will admit that I am a fan of his character, even though there isn't much to his character.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's just... When he says he is the most beautiful person in the world, I believe that his character believes that.
Oh, yeah.
And that's... It's a similar thing to Gaston in Beauty and the Beast, though I find Fabin much more likable. I also think Saffron Henderson, who plays Lumina, does a really good job switching between her sort of spooky predictions and then a normal voice.
Mm-hmm.
She creates these two distinct voices that makes the switch between them funny. Like, those intentionally funny.
Right, yeah.
And a bit like it takes you off guard, but in a good way. And then Sharon Alexander has to play Sunburst and Laverna as Sunburst. And they do switch between her and Kathleen Barr, who plays Laverna.
Great again,
but,
of course.
Yeah. Sharon Alexander also has to play Laverna.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she does a very good job in both of those roles. And yeah, Kelly Sheridan, again, she's the protagonist here.
Yeah.
Again, she's doing good work. I don't really have much to say about her here. She's probably giving the best performance she has in any of these Fairytopia movies.
Right.
But again, the role isn't asking much of her.
No. She's doing fine for what it is, but not as standout-ish as previous roles. Andrew Francis as Lyndon. Is it Lyndon?
Yes.
I just immediately recognized him as Andrew Francis. That's all. Like, I heard his like first word, and I was like, "That's Andrew Francis." Oh no! Dizzle is Kathy Westlock. Oh no, not Kathy. Anyway, I gave the voice acting a 3.5.
Yeah, I gave it a 4. Again, I just think that these apprentice characters are so interesting that I wish they had a better movie to support them. Mm-hmm. Because in every aspect, their character designs, their personalities, their voice acting is all stellar across the board. And yeah, finally we have music, and what an improvement from the last two Fairytopia movies.
Is it? I haven't noticed.
Especially the final showdown with Laverna is epic and exciting in a way that none of the music for these other Fairytopia movies have been. But it's also incorporating familiar themes from these other movies. When I complained in Mermaidia about the reuse of songs and how that didn't lead to better work, this is what I was talking about, where they're bringing back songs, but that allows them the time to work on new songs that raise the stakes. And yeah, it stood out a lot more to me this time around, particularly in the third act, where I think it just elevates the whole thing.
I sadly did not notice the music.
Yeah, I don't know if on its own it is particularly memorable. However, given how much of an improvement it is all around, I mean, I gotta give them extra points for that. So, yeah, I gave the music a 4.5 out of 5. Again, just such an improvement that I feel like even if maybe the music on its own isn't a 4.5 out of 5, but it deserves that extra zero point 0.5 because of how much it has.
Well, it's a shame I completely didn't notice this, because I go to 3.5. Yeah, which means my total score is a 16.1, which is 1 point better than the first Fairytopia. And it's a percentage of 64.4% and 3.2 5-star rating.
Yep, I was much higher. I gave it a 20 out of 25. 80% or a 4 out of 5 on our 5-point scale, which I don't know. I think it's the best in the Fairytopia trilogy by a wide margin.
I don't know. I think Mermaidia is better.
Okay. I mean, I can see the argument both ways. And I gave a Mermaidia 19 out of 20. So it's not that wide a margin, even though I just said it is.
Part of it comes down to story as well. I felt like
Yeah.
Mermaidia was stronger story-wise.
Yeah, I did as well. I just think the characters here are what make the difference for me. And the music. That's actually, looking at my scores, that's the big difference.
And so, looking at our final thoughts, Laverna's dead.
Yeah. She is not coming back from that.
No, she just blew up in a magic of rainbow or something.
Yeah. Which you don't usually see that in a kids movie. And I think it's important, since this is the last of this Fairytopia trilogy, to have that closure.
I don't know if it's even closure. It's just she blows up.
To have she's no longer a threat, and she never
No
will
one
be again.
talks about it. Enchantress's sister blows up. She's like, "Oh, wow, I'm gonna give you all necklaces. Here you go, Elina, you get 2.
Yeah.
What happens to her other necklace? Does she have them both on? Why do they get necklaces? Does that mean that they're guardians? I don't know.
I think that is what it's supposed to mean.
Then isn't Elina not a guardian?
Yeah. I again, that's part of the ambiguous world building, I think, is that it's difficult to tell what's going to happen after this movie.
Sure.
To any of these characters. But yeah, I think the reason they don't bring it up after they kill Laverna is that if they said in that many words, it wouldn't have flown under the radar. Someone would have raised a red flag and said, "You can't kill a character."
Who said we killed her? She blew up.
Well, yeah.
It's magic. She's a frog again.
I think if you acknowledge it, you have to show her alive.
What happened to Dobby? Is he just forever a frog? We never come back to him.
Yeah, Fungus Maximus, not Dobby. You're confusing the movie with Harry Potter.
Yeah.
He has the same character design as Dobby.
He eats a fly. He's like, oh. And then that's it. We don't see him again.
Yeah. For him, there isn't any finality to the ending. But for Laverna, there is.
Man.
And Fabian. He's the best. My favorite character. Just such a fun little character. So before we go, we wanted to take a moment. This is our 10th episode, which, first off, I'm surprised we got this far. I feel kind of proud of us that we've been able to stick with this. But yeah, we wanted to take a minute to sort of look back and see how things are going.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought we could do sort of our two favorites and our two least favorites so far to kind of get a sense on the temperature right now.
Okay.
So overall, I think we can probably both agree on this, that the best movie so far has been Princess and the Pauper.
I agree, yes.
It's just so good. It's a good movie in its own right, not only a good Barbie movie.
It is.
Yeah, my second favorite has been Magic of Pegasus.
Same for me.
Okay.
Just an excellent subversion of expectations of the characters.
Yeah. I think, honestly, those two are the two movies I would recommend to someone who hasn't seen them
If it's
before.
not Pegasus, then it's Rapunzel.
Yeah. Rapunzel is very good as well. I liked 12 Dancing Princesses and Magic of the Rainbow more than you did, but that has been previously established. You can listen to our episode on 12 Dancing Princesses and re-listen to this episode if you want my opinions there.
Mm.
Maybe Fabian is skewing my opinions a bit with Magic of the Rainbow, but that's fine.
Perhaps.
He's good enough for it.
Mm.
He deserves it.
Do we both also have the two least favorites as well?
I don't know that we do. Our least favorite is obviously Barbie Diaries.
Of course.
We both gave that the exact same score.
Mm-hmm.
Just could have been something, though with that animation style probably wouldn't have been too much of anything anyway.
Right, yeah.
And yeah, my second least favorite is, honestly, looking at my scores, it's Nutcracker.
Okay. Mine is Fairytopia.
Yeah. I think I agree that Fairytopia deserves to be down there. But Nutcracker just disappointed me so much with how conventional its story was. Whereas Fairytopia, I mean, it has a conventional story, but it isn't based on an unconventional original story.
Mm. But Nutcracker had the dancing and the music.
It did have the dancing, yes.
And Tim Curry. Nutcracker.
Yeah. Honestly, I would maybe bump it up a few more points than what I gave it originally. Which we actually also had the same score of Nutcracker, though. There are movies on your list that fall lower than on mine. But yeah, if you're curious to see a full list of our scores, we actually have it posted on our Letterboxd, both the overall scores and then individual lists for both John and I. So you can see where our rankings are if you want a full summary of that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Make sure to follow us on social media. We are Binging Barbie Podcast on Instagram, at Binging Barbie on Twitter, and Binging Barbie, a Barbie movie podcast on Letterboxd, where you can find an up-to-date list on our Barbie movie rankings. Join us next week for a discussion of Barbie as the Island Princess.
Ooh.
Ooh. Anyway, thank you guys, and you'll see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.